Brandon. And along with a big old orange bus full of common do-goodies, we are both common good. And we are so happy to be here with you today in this, in this beautiful wooded area. And it's gorgeous, and it's a gorgeous evening. And you know, we've been traveling all around this country, spreading the good news about how good everyone is, and that our hearts can be open, and our minds can be open, and we can do better, and we can get better, and we can go higher to that higher love that we're all reaching for. Is that all right? Now, one thing we love to do besides just a whole lot of talking is a whole lot of singing, and this is a song that we love to sing. And, well, we'd love if you help us out with it. Now, I know it sounds like a whole lot of words, and me and Brandon, we're going to take care of most of it. But if you could just help us out with Everybody's Got. Every time that comes around, well, that would sure make me real happy. You think you can do that? I think so. All right, let's try it. Everybody's got a sidewalk to walk on. Everybody's got a road to go down. Everybody's got somewhere to get to. Everybody, everywhere, we're glory bound. Let me hear you. Everybody's got a sidewalk to walk on. Everybody's got a road to go down. Come on. Yeah, somewhere to get to. Everybody, everywhere, we're glory bound. Come on. A sidewalk to walk on. A road to go down. Everybody's got somewhere to get to. Everybody, everywhere, we're glory bound. Everybody, everywhere, we're glory bound. Everybody, everywhere, we're glory
Well, are we glad to see you all out here, friends? My name is Doug Padgett, and as Mia said, we've been driving around on this bus since January 2nd. We pulled it up outside of the White House because we wanted to send a message to the inhabitant of the White House that we've all been hearing some things that don't sit so well with our souls. You know what I'm saying? You've been hearing what we've been hearing, and you've been hearing people say things like, if you're a true Christian, you have to vote for a Republican, even if it's this guy, and we're here to remind you that just ain't so. You've been hearing people say the news is all fake, and we are here to remind you that the news is good, amen? You have been hearing people say America first, but we're here to remind you that you're also called to the kingdom of God and to seek first the kingdom of God on behalf of all of those who are the least of these. And you've been hearing people say things like, oh, all you have to do if you're going to vote is vote to stack the courts. And we're here to remind you that you could gain the whole world and lose your very soul. And I'm afraid to say that our current batch of Republicans have made a deal with the devil on this one. And you have heard people say, I am so powerful I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue. Well, we're here to remind you, you want to live by that sword, you're going to die by that sword, and that sword is coming down on Election Day. Amen, friends? Now, you've also been hearing people say, it is what it is, but we're here to remind you that blessed are those who mourn. You are hearing people say things like, we have to build a wall to keep them out and to separate families. But we're here to remind you that which God has brought together, no one should ever separate, and that's something we're going to be saying on Election Day, friends. Now look, it's clear to me, and it might be clear to you, that Donald Trump is totally insufficient for this job. He is a man who is simply dangerous, and with his dithering, his denying, and his do-nothing, he has caused us to live in a pandemic that has killed thousands and thousands of people, and this is an issue not only of righteousness, this is an issue of health and safety, and the man is simply dangerous. Not only him, but all those people that he's been consorting with. But I'm going to tell you, we're not going to spend all of our time here telling you how bad Donald Trump is. We're not here to convince you that Donald Trump is a problem. The man is a self-cleaning oven. He does all the work for you, and he'll make it perfectly clear that he's insufficient for the job. We're not here to remind you how bad he is. We are here to remind you how good you are. That on Election Day, you need to rise up. And we're here to ask you to wake up as you did this day and to wake up every day, to speak up and to stand up. And if you love your neighbors, you love yourself, don't let them go to that voting booth without a very clear call that they're here to join you in faith, hope, and love on Election Day. So love your neighbor as you love yourself, and get out there and get a sign in your yard and a knock on your door, as we'll tell you later, a postcard in the mailbox to say to your neighbors that they need to join you in what's going to be happening here. Now, we like to say this is a bipartisan event. We're not here to make Republicans into Democrats. I happen to be one, but you don't have to be like me. We're not here to tell Republicans to stop being Republicans. This is a bipartisan event. We want Republicans and Democrats and Green Party members and independents. We want everybody to vote against Donald Trump on Election Day. So this is a very bipartisan event. We're not trying to pick sides. We're trying to get you to step onto the good side and to the vote common good side. So we're going to ask you to stick with us throughout our time here, but not just for you, but for the common good of others. Now, people ask us all the time, boy, don't you feel like as you're traveling around this country, we were just in Harrisburg yesterday and in Wilkes-Barre the day before that, and then we were over there in Michigan, and we were over in Wisconsin. We're going to be going down to North Carolina and down to Florida if we come back here the last week before the election in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, because as goes Pennsylvania, friends, so goes the White House. So we're taking that very seriously. People ask us, well, don't you feel like you're just out preaching to the choir? Well, I got to tell you, I'm a pastor from Minnesota, and I've been a pastor for a long time, and that tells me that I know a lot of choir members. So are we preaching to the choir? You better believe we're preaching to the choir, because the choir in this country tends to lose its voice at the very time it needs to rise up. So be our choir on Election Day, and let's sing a new song, and let's step forward, because I got to tell you, we're all children of God. Everyone around, take a look at these beautiful faces. I tell you, even Donald Trump is the salt of the earth and the light of the world, beloved child of God. But not every light of the world should be the President of the United States, and we need to tell this man on November 3rd to take his dim little light and let it shine somewhere else and stop bothering the good people of this country in this role. So we're not here to make it personal about him. We're here to make it personal about you and your neighbors and all the people who are affected by this administration. So thanks for being with us. And I got to tell you, it means a lot that you'll say yes to be here, because a lot of people tell us no when we ask them to come to a Vote Common Good rally or to host one. Sometimes our religious friends get a little nervous about the politics. Sometimes our political friends, they get a little nervous about the faith, hope, and love part. People tell us no on both sides. In fact, we even got kicked out of a Goodwill parking lot in Des Moines, Iowa, and we're the Vote Common Good group, and that's honest to God truth. We got kicked out of a Goodwill parking lot because people tend to say no to us. But then people say yes, and do you know who said yes to us? Well, you all did. Look around, a bunch of yes men and women sitting around you. We like a bunch of yes men and women sitting around. We're glad that you said yes to us. We'll tell you who else said yes to us, and that's Pastor Jared Kerbel, who's the pastor of this church right behind us. He said yes to us. So, Pastor, would you come up and give the good people a warm welcome? And if you like this sitting out here in this on this field, what day you show up on Sunday and get under that white tent. So, thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to put a new cover on. You're going to notice that we're doing this as we go, because when you take your masks off up here, then we ask people to slip on a new one of these. So, I'm going to give you a fresh one and turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, y'all. Good to see you here today. Let me give you a warm welcome. We're normally called the Church of St. Martin in the Fields. Today we're the Church of St. Martin in the parking lot. And we're glad to fill it with this energy and this spirit and this work. We are doing our own voter engagement work called Voting is Our Sacred Duty. And one of my people said, well, why is it sacred? I said, because people died for it, my friend. People died for this right to vote. People died for our ability to have self-determination in this country, and we believe it's part of the sacred dignity of every human being. That's why I'm standing up here. That's why I love everything that this group is bringing. We believe that voting is a way of loving your neighbor. Bring that love to your neighbor, and I believe that when we work hard, will bring out the best in our nation to put away the worst in our nation. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for this work.
Check 1 2 1 2. How y'all doing? Oh, what a beautiful crowd. Thank you so much for being here, sharing this space and time with us. We really appreciate it. My name is Genesis B. I am the Poet Laureate of Vote Common Good. Very proud of that title. Yeah, thank you. I'm a hip-hop artist from Biloxi, Mississippi, and also an activist. For the last 5 years, my activism has revolved around removing the Confederate emblem from the Mississippi state flag, bringing national attention to that issue, working with my collaborators on the ground, Mississippi Poor People's Campaign, Mississippi Rising Coalition, along with Anjanou Ellis. That symbol stayed on that flag for 120 years. and Mississippi is the last state to remove the Confederate emblem from the Mississippi state flag. And I'm very proud to say that after 120 years, on June 30th, 2020, Mississippi retired that flag. Yeah, they did. And that struggle did not start with me, it started with my ancestors, some of y'all's ancestors too. You know, it was a joint effort to do that. So my work is often controversial. When I first started off protesting the Confederate emblem and the Mississippi state flag, it was with this protest that I did in New York at a sold-out show where I draped myself in a body-sized Confederate flag, hung a noose around my neck, and had a few choice words for our Governor Phil Bryant. Somebody snapped a pic of that photo, and it went viral. Everyone from Billboard to Breitbart picked it up, and the thing was, I didn't know that the Confederate emblem was still in the Mississippi state flag. A lot of people didn't know that. So sometimes you gotta be a little controversial to get people's attention, right? Thank you. So I have this piece I'm gonna do for you right now, but before I do this piece, I have a question for you. And the question is not rhetorical. I would really appreciate an answer and some participation. There's no wrong answer. Y'all ready? All right. If Trump disappeared today, right now, what would America do? I hear rejoice. Any other? Celebrate. Happy. What else would America do? Get to work. No wrong answer. Breathe. If Trump disappeared today, what would America do? Would there still be all this commotion? Would America still worship money? Would we still pollute the oceans? Would we still imprison black men and shoot them down with no emotion? Would women still be the smartest in the room and still get passed up for promotions? What would America do if Trump no longer exists? Would we still destroy our planet for profit? Would we still have private prisons, the new slave trade in auction? Would men still write laws dictating what women do with our bodies, stripping away anatomical autonomy? Would we still shame women who use sex as commodity, but not shame men who buy sex and pornography? Would we still turn a blind eye to all this hypocrisy? What would America do if it was up to you? Would you finally purge law enforcement of white supremacist bigots? Would you finally give equal rights to poor whites and immigrants? Would preachers still use the pulpit to pimp our communities? Would boys still be boys, raping and assaulting with impunity? Didn't start with Trump, did it? Would we still ignore the killing of trans folks? Because this is where America stands, folks. To know what would America do, I ask, what has America done? For one, we massacred our native population. Yeah, we did that. From the blood of black slaves, we built the richest of nations. And we waged war before. We cried wolf with terrorist threats. You remember weapons of mass destruction? Y'all remember that? It's crazy how quickly we forget. I've seen America burn crosses on the lawns of my father. I've seen America separate mothers and toddlers. I've seen Americans vote for men whose only moral is money. Men who appeal to the sexism and racism of my beautiful Christian country. So we search for a savior to save us from the big orange goblin. Some magical Democrat that will solve all our nation's problems. But Trump is just a symptom of a money-hungry system that never had regard for our troops, no regard for the truth, no regard for the planet, and no regard for the youth. Trump was born into this, just like you and I. Trump is as American as apple pie. And I hate to be so blunt. So I won't ask, what would America do? We know what America's done. Instead, I ask, what can America be if we step up in the days to come? Can we be one nation under God, indivisible? Can true freedom and compassion be our core principles? Can it be a place where pharmaceutical riches do not result in more sickness? Where corporations have constraint and cannot buy our politicians? where the money we use to wage war goes to healing Mother Earth or building houses for the poor. It's just a thought. A place where all synagogues are safe. It's simple. Where our Muslim brothers and sisters are looked upon with grace. Where young girls can walk the streets without being harassed because young boys are taught to understand the traumatizing effect that that has. So what can America be? A place where someone who looks like me and loves like me can actually feel safe and free? Where black and brown women are not minimized and the image of us outside reflects the power of our insides, our potential, our resilience, our imagination, and our brilliance. Because my ancestors fought for me to have a voice, they fought for us to have a vote. So I talk my shit and I cast my ballot. I honor them by doing both. Because they knew, they did. They knew what America could be. But it starts with you and it starts with me. Because although he spews lies and his actions show cowardice, assigning that much power to any man will eventually render you powerless. That's right. So don't ask what would America do. Ask what can America be. And the answer to that question, my friends, is solely up to you and me. I'm Genesis B, y'all. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing, the incomparable Genesis B. Reminding us that we're not exactly where we need to be, but oh, the possibilities of where we can go. And some of you may have children and grandchildren, and we all want the best for them. And we want them to have a beautiful earth, and we want them to get along and love each other and have great leaders and representatives. And man, we're gonna do this together, y'all. So I wrote this song called I Hope, so that I'd be uplifted. I'm sorry, my name is Mia. This is Mario. We sing songs together. Yeah, it's called I Hope, and it's about just that. It's a nod to people who are already doing stuff, like all of you here. People who are showing up and saying, you know what? The time is now for us to do something, and I'll do it. I'll help. I'll show up. I'll do something. So I feel like it. How could we ever come to this, you say? Our lives do not matter, and justice has no face. To study war and anger burns the fabric of our state, sends a message to our neighbors that we've fallen from the fray. It's a long road to walk home, and I don't know where it is, but I hope. And when I'm too tired to carry on, I don't know if you'll be there, but I hope. Dream on, dreamers, when the promises fade, it can only leave room for the great. And when you long for a hero, no need to look around. You will be one and the same. I said, fight on, brothers, to kneel or to stand. It's a power that's placed in your hands, yeah, yeah. And march on, sisters, you're never alone. Lift us up and carry us home. 'Cause it's a long road to walk home. I don't know if you'll be there, but I hope we've come too far now to turn around, and we won't back down. I hope, and you might say we'll never, never see the end. No, no. Well, I don't know, my friend. I hope. I hope for you, for me. I hope.
Well, hey there. I'm Vanessa, and I am an artist, and I'm a pastor, and I'm a wife, and I'm a mom. And your beautiful campus here feels real comfortable. I feel really welcome and at home here. Feels a lot like home where I live in Arkansas. I didn't grow up in Arkansas, though. I grew up here in Pennsylvania. And I just joined the tour. I'm pretty new to this speaking thing. So I grew up on the western side of the state, but I went to college just up the road, not too far here, near Scranton, in a little town called Clark Summit. Used to be called Baptist Bible College. Now it's Clark Summit University. And I had a lot of fun there. It's a really good place for me. I got a chance to take my son there and show him around and let him see the campus. And there's a lot of history of our family there and a lot of memories. I had a lot of fun. It was where I met Jesus. And it was where I met my husband. Now maybe you're doing the math in your head saying, wait a minute, how'd you go to Bible college and meet Jesus? Isn't that a little backwards? Well, you have to understand where I came from. See, I grew up going to a little private Christian school. My parents were trying to give us a little better opportunity. And so they didn't have a lot of money, but they wanted to send us to this school because they thought it would help us to kind of get a leg up in the world. And so I went to that school from kindergarten through 12th grade. It was all the education I knew. I don't know how else to describe it to you, but to tell you that that place was a dark place. See, when I was a little girl, kind of like the little girl I have at home, little curly hair and freckles, 6 years old, curious about the world and wanting to know how everything works, I reached up in that hallway on the way to the water fountain when I was supposed to have my hands folded, and I touched that crinkly edge of the bulletin board because I wanted to know what it feels like. And my teacher took me by the shoulder, marched me around the corner, and put me in a dark room and closed the door and locked me in. It didn't get much better as time went on. See, you'd walk in the door and they'd look you up and down, and they would check to see if you were good enough, if you were following all the rules and rules and rules. And if you weren't, they'd send you to the bathroom and you'd kneel down in subservience in front of somebody and have them measure your skirt and your worth. And they'd make executive order after executive order about how we could be in the world. And so you might understand why college was a little bit more fun for me. So it was back in 2016, actually, and we actually had our 20-year class reunion there at the college. And so my husband took my oldest, and we went out to go to the reunion. And we spent that afternoon having that awkward conversation he had with people and whatnot. We were pretty tired. We went back to the hotel room and turned on the TV, turned on the news. And the news that night was all about the Access Hollywood tape. Do you remember the Access Hollywood tape? It's all about how Trump was bragging about what he could do, how he could grab a woman without her permission, invade her space, ignore her autonomy. And I remember thinking, well, good, that's the end of him, right? It's been enough nonsense, this guy. And you know how that turned out. So that might be why my girlfriends gathered at my house the day after the election. And there was just that heaviness in the room, and we couldn't name it. We didn't know what it was, but maybe it had something to do with knowing how it feels when somebody's in power over you and they're not a good person and you are vulnerable. And my friends began to get involved, but I didn't know what to do. I grew up Republican. I grew up just voting with the R, like that's our team, and I never really paid attention, and that's just what you do. And I didn't know how to get involved. I didn't know what to do. But now I know. I know I have to tell my story. I got to stand up and I got to speak up. You see, about a year ago, August 3rd, I had all my kids home from school, my 2 college kids, and my middle schooler and my tiny little one. We were all home, and that's such a rare and wonderful time for a family. And we decided to take those kids out and go back to school shopping at Walmart, like you do. And I had all the kids in the van, and I was like, all right, guys, let's take a selfie, everybody in. And we're in the ugly mom van and getting all in the picture. We snapped that photo, and I put my phone down in front of me and looked down, and I saw breaking news. That breaking news was that there had been another shooting. That shooting was in El Paso. And that shooting got to me. You see, as the news began to unfold and we saw pictures, that shooter's Facebook page, and he had his guns laid out in the name of Trump to impress his hero. And then we began to hear the eyewitness accounts of how that shooter walked through the store, and he would pass over a family that was white, and he would set his sights and save his bullets for brown bodies. And my heart broke, because my 3rd child is adopted, my beautiful Charlie. She is a Latina. Her brown chocolate hair and her brown eyes. She sings like an angel, and she draws all day long. She is the glue that holds our family together. She's the peacemaker. She's like Beth in Little Women. Everybody loves her, and she has no idea why. And I realized that if our family had been in El Paso instead of Walmart, instead of Arkansas, if we had been in Texas instead of Arkansas, and shopping in that store, that shooter would have passed over me and my husband, my other kids, and for no other reason than the color of her skin, would have shot my girl. And I broke inside. I broke inside so much that I had to get on a plane and fly to El Paso to try to understand what in the world was happening. And I went and I saw that long, long, long memorial where that shooting had happened, and read those names of those precious souls. And I went to a border facility, and I saw where they were keeping those children separate from their families. I thought about those women, as we've heard in the news even just this week, these women who they have stolen their uterus without their permission or their consent. They have taken away their power to give life. You see, I know how it feels to be trapped in a dark place. I knew what it felt like to have powerful men making decisions about what happened to me. I knew what it was like to be stuck in a policy that was no good. Because that school where I grew up was that dark place. And Genesis talked about that goblin, that orange goblin. Well, we had a monster. We had a monster in our school, too. See, there was a long hallway and then a flight of stairs to go to the office. And at the bottom of that flight of stairs, you had to pass by a room, and in that room was the monster in our school. And that monster would prey on the little girls that walked by to take notes to the office. And eventually the news came out, and they tried to tell people what was happening to them. And those men that had control over what happened, those good religious voters, they decided to give that man a love offering and send him on his way. I know my story's not unique. I know that in a group of faith people that we've all heard a story like that. We know that evil exists, but there's a special kind of horror involved when good people know that evil is happening and they don't do anything. See, the last 4 years for a lot of women have felt like a walk by the room where the monster lives. It has felt that invasive feeling of his tweets being stuffed down our throats and his overreaching hands groping us. I had a teacher that used to tell us, girls, you gotta look out for an international man. You know what an international man is, right? He's got Roman hands and Russian fingers. Yeah. So I am asking folks all over this country, on this live feed and in this space right now, to not give this man the love offering of your vote. Back then we needed a pastor or a priest, and we got a pedophile. And now we need a president, and we got this piece of work. So I am a mother. I am a biological mother. I am an adoptive mother, and I am a spiritual mother. I am asking people to vote for the common good. I'm asking them to vote like a mother.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. I grew up in a similar world, and it wasn't quite as dark as those years you described. And initially, it was really beautiful. It was good people, a Christian home, and a church that taught me to love Jesus and taught me to take the words of Jesus seriously. And that's why I was so confused when this past election came around. 81% of white evangelicals voted for a man that looks nothing like Jesus. If you look at Matthew 25, if you look at the Beatitudes, if you read any of the Gospels, the behaviors and words and actions of this administration are almost polar opposites. So I was confused, I was angry, I felt betrayed by the faith community that raised me. And so I put those words and frustrations into this song. It's called Hymn for the 81%. I grew up in your churches, Sunday morning and evening service, knelt in tears at the foot of the rugged cross. You taught me every life is sacred, feed the hungry and clothe the naked, learn from you the highest law is love. And I believed you when you said that I should trust the words in red to guide my steps through a wicked world. I assumed you'd do the same, so imagine my dismay when I watched you lead the sheep straight to the wolves. You said to love the lost, well, I'm loving you. You said to speak the truth, so I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome. and justice rolled out. Oh, they started putting kids in cages, ripping mothers from their babies, and I look to you to speak on their behalf. Oh, but all I heard was silence. Or worse, you justified it, singing glory, hallelujah, raise the flag. See, your fear had turned to hatred, but you baptized it with language torn from the pages of the good book. You weaponized religion, and you wonder why I'm leaving to find Jesus on the wrong side of your walls. You said to love the lost, so I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, so I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Come home, come home. You're better than this. You taught me better than this. Come home, come home. Oh, you're better than this. You taught me better than this. Come home. Come home, oh. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. You said to love the lost, I'm trying to love you now. You said to speak the truth, so I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? Love overcome, injustice roll down. Love overcome, injustice roll down. Love overcome, injustice roll down. May love overcome and justice roll down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Every time I hear that song, it's so good. It's like he just nailed it. I'm pretty sure that's on YouTube as well, right? So if you just search for that, you can listen to it over and over again. Yeah, as I have a tendency to do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this space. And thank you for the access to the church behind me. I was able to go in there just before we arrived, and I was able to spend some time and just kind of relax and be silent. So it's good to be here. 81%. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of Christian voters. And that, in a nutshell, describes where I am from, where I hail from. So I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Yes, Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right, thank you. Grand Rapids, Michigan is a stronghold for the Republican Party and conservative Christian values. And it's within this religious and political context where Trump signs far outnumber Biden signs, and where churches pepper the landscape. I have said yes to Vote Common Good, because Vote Common Good has provided me the context, the space, the vocabulary, and the permission to say no. To say no to Donald Trump, and to say no to that which is against the common good. But let me explain a little bit of how I arrived here. So this past summer, there was a New York Times article published by Elizabeth Diaz. And in this article, Diaz explains the story of when then candidate Trump was on the campaign trail in Sioux City, Iowa in 2016. And in front of a crowd of curious onlookers, white evangelicals, and to note, Sioux City, Iowa is a rather large conservative, or it's a conservative Christian community, much like mine. Trump said these things. He said, Christianity is under tremendous siege, whether we want to talk about it or we don't. And then he continued, Christians are the majority of this country, and yet we don't exert the power that we should have. And he said, if I am in the White House, you will have plenty of power. I will represent you very, very well. Remember that. And these Christian voters did. Indeed, to the tune of 81% of evangelical voters and white Catholics and Mormons in droves. In effect, Donald Trump wanted to cut a deal for political power and have Christians sign their name on the dotted line. But Trump duped these voters. He sold them a bill of goods that was false, that was a distorted and hijacked view of the Christian narrative for power that Jesus puts on display and teaches in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So in stark contrast, Jesus gave away the opportunity for concrete power at every turn, even when murdered upon a tree, so that his fledgling group of friends would be able to see exactly what real power looks like. These politics of Jesus, where on earth as in heaven is a public policy, and where the binding principles of this Constitution finds its words in a small poem that goes like this. Let the same mind be in you that is in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not consider himself as an equal, and who did not exploit this power, but emptied of himself, emptied of this power in humility, and became obedient to this, so much so to the point of death on a cross. And it is at this therefore that God exalted him above all other names. So what I want us to consider is transformational power and what this looks like. The way to transformational power is not through the ascent of the ego. It's not through the ascent of the individual. It's not through the ascent of the religious institution. And it's definitely most not through the ascent of the political party, no matter what side you are on. Power that transcends and gives life to me and to you and to us begins with solidarity and recognizing critical moments in history, such as this one coming on November 3rd, that call us to go beyond our own selfish needs for power and an exploitation of what the good news is that we find in the gospel stories. So in my final analysis, and I hope yours, Donald Trump is right. Christianity will have power. He and his enablers just do not know that we already have it, and that we have had this power, this real transformational and transcendent power from in the beginning, the Word became flesh. So I've chosen to say no to Donald Trump because my yes recognizes the power of a self-emptying that arises, resurrects to bring new life. So friends, may you not choose in your politics to go right. And may you choose not to go left, but may you go deeper and deeper into the politics of Jesus. And may you seek faith, hope, and love for the common good in everything that you do. Peace be with you, friends.
Well, I don't know if he told you, but his name is Nick Brock, and Nick just joined us. We did an event in Grand Rapids, and Nick said, I kind of like this, so he came to our next event, and then our next event, and then worked out a deal with his wife and their 4-year-old, and now he's going to stay with us all the way through Election Day. Which brings me to this little intermission here, this little intermission moment in our day. This is what I like to call the Harvey Milk moment of our gathering. I'm here to recruit you. We want to take you with us too. Now, maybe all of you can't get in the bus and travel with us the whole time. Maybe you can't stay with us all the way through Election Day. But we do want to take you with us. Now, one way we could do that is we'd love for you to text the word GOOD to 66866 if you haven't done that already. It's going to then ask you to send us your name and your email address. And then you know what's going to happen? We're going to email you. But don't worry, we're not going to email you one time a week or anything. We're going to email you 3 or 4 times a week, at least for the next 4 weeks, because we've got a lot of work to do, and we need to stay in touch, because 37 days from today, we're going to do a big thing on Election Day, and we need to stay in touch with you. So send us your email address if you're not already on our email. Another way we'd like to take you with us is that we'd like to have you in the tank with us. We'd love to put you in the tank, because there's 4 things that get us around this country. 3 of them are pretty obvious. Faith, hope, love. You know what the 4th is? Diesel. Diesel moves that big bus all around the country, so we'd love to put you in the tank with us. And that's what the participation tent over there is all about. This is the PBS part of the day. You might be asking yourself, well, who funds this? People actually do ask us that all the time. In fact, sometimes people come walking around that bus and they look at it, and a guy in New York stood and looked, and I looked over at him, and he looked over at me, and he goes, what is this? One of those George Soros funded things? We get that all the time. People ask us, is George Soros funding this? And we have to tell them all the time, don't we, Patrick? We have to say to them, no, George Soros is not funding this. But if you know George Soros, please tell him about this, because we'd love to have him fund us. And until he does, you might be asking who funds this, and it comes from viewers like you. So we'd love to see you over at the participation tent. Now, we're only having fun with that, but we really do want to exchange a T-shirt, a bumper sticker, a sign, and some other things I'm going to tell you about in a minute for a contribution. Now, we take cash, we take checks, we take credit cards, we take Venmo, we take PayPal. For crying out loud, we'd barter with you over a beaver pelt. In fact, one of the things we did barter, somebody was here, and she lives right in the neighborhood, and she runs this program, which is Cycle to Vote for cyclists. But on the back, there are these QR codes. I don't know if you know how QR codes work, but if you take your phone out and just point your camera at that, it will launch a website that comes right from that QR code. You can see the one on the right says register to the vote, and the one on the left says your mail-in ballot. These are designed for you to wear around so people can just learn where to register. These are only for Pennsylvania. They're over there at that table. She brought them for people just to bring. It's like a bake sale out here. I'm going to tell you about a bake sale in a minute. But we want you to bring things and exchange them. Look, pick up anything from over there, and we'd love to send you home with one of those, because we really do want you to feel like you're part of a movement. Look, people feel alone. They feel scared all the time. They don't know. My own wife just had a conversation with her own dad out in South Dakota, and it brought her to tears because she can't believe what's happening. People feel so scared and so alone. So part of the reason we travel around is because we want you to have a chance to feel like you're part of a movement. So I'm just having a little fun, saying we want you in the tank with us, we want to bring you along with us, but we really do, and we hope you want to take us with you. We want you to feel like you're part of a faith, hope, and love movement that's happening all over this country. And when we go down to North Carolina, we're going to tell them about people here in Pennsylvania. When we go down to Florida, we're going to tell them about this, because people need to feel like they're part of something bigger. Now, look, I'm a Democrat, and I want you to vote for Joe Biden. And if I had a shirt like that, I'd wear a Joe Biden 2020 shirt right now. And the way Dan said it in one of our meetings, I thought was so great. He said, look, the country's on fire. You got one candidate holding the gas can and the other candidate's holding the fire hose. Now, one fire hose in Joe Biden's hand is not enough to put out the fires that are raging in this country. There are too many things. There's a racial reckoning that has to happen. There's social reordering. There's a political correction that has to happen. One candidate isn't enough. One fire hose isn't enough. We've all got to get our fire hoses over on that side. But I'll tell you what, you don't vote for the guy that's burning the country down with a gas can in his hand, right? So what we've got to do is feel like we're all part of this fire brigade, and we're going to do something in this country, and we're going to make that happen. So we really do want to take you with us. I want you to feel like you're part of a movement. We're so glad that you're here. You're going to hear from a couple of more people. Mia is going to ask you to rise up here in a second, and we do want this country to rise up. And then you're going to hear from Ron Sider. Ron Sider's been doing great work for years. You're going to hear from Mara. You're going to get another invitation to be part of some things with us, and we do want to take you with us. I just want to tell you about one more thing that we want you to do. I want you to make a commitment to spend an hour each day. You're going to spend an hour or so with us here on this day. And for the next 36 days, we'd ask you to take an hour of your day and donate it, commit it to being a part of some kind of a movement of faith, hope, and love for Election Day. However that works for you. As my friend Tessa said, her mom told her, when you live in a time of social turmoil, you don't do nothing, sweetie, you do something. So find your something. And if you don't have enough of a something, we have postcards over there that have a Christian message on one side. They look an awful lot like this. They've got a message on one side, and then on the back, they're a postcard. This is the best part of the whole big. Now, they're not this big. They're regular postcard size, so you can just drop them in the mail. What these have is a chance for you to write something on this side and then put an address on there. And what we have are packets of 15 postcards with a message like this one and a back like this for you to mail. And inside that packet of 15 postcards are 15 mailing addresses of faith voters right here in Pennsylvania. So you write a message. We've already pre-selected faith voters. These are people that we know are going to vote, and we know vote based on their Christian identity. And many of those people need someone to come into their mailbox and ask them to do the right thing on Election Day. We know you're not confident going knocking door to door, but you can go mailbox to mailbox. So we'd love to have you do that. So go over to that participation tent when we're done here tonight, pick up a pack of postcards, get them in the mail, take a sign home with you, do whatever you need to do, and pick up a Cycle t-shirt and be a part of this movement. Now, you're also going to get an email from us that tells you about something we're doing on October 17th, which is our Bake America Great Again plan. It's a citizen-led national bake sale to save the post office. Because the president's attacking the post office, Congress can't figure out how to fund it, so we're going to have a bake sale in every state and every community to save the post office. We can't wait to tell you about it. So get on the email list, because that's going to be a really great time. So you're going to hear from a couple more people. This is Mia, this is Mario, that's Mia, this is Mario. They're going to serenade you, and then you're going to hear from Ron and from Mara. Thank you so much for the two of you being here, and thanks to all of you being with us today.
I can't wait for the big sale. I can't wait. Broken down and tired, living life on a merry-go-round. You can't find the fighter. I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it on out. And mountains we can't move, mountains. And we'll rise up, rise like the day. We'll rise up, rise unafraid. We'll rise up and do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, high like the waves. We'll rise up, in spite of the aches. We'll rise up and do it 1,000 times again. Yes, we will. when the silence isn't quiet, no, and you find it so very hard to breathe, yeah, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise you will take this world on its feet and move mountains. Yes, we will. Together we can move big old mountains, yeah. And we'll rise up, rise like the day. We'll rise up, rise unafraid. We'll rise up and do it 1,000 times again. Yes, we will. And we'll rise up high like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the aches. We'll rise up and do it 1,000 times again. Yeah. Oh, wake up, speak up, stand up. Yes, together we've got to rise up and do it 1,000 times again, 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 again. And we'll rise up, rise like the day. We'll rise up in spite of the hate. Rise up and do it 1,000 times again. Yes, we will. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. I want to say thank you to all those who have spoken powerful words, but especially to the sister who talked about the adopted Latina daughter. We have a beautiful adopted daughter from Nicaragua. And thank you to Dan. I'm 81 years old. I've been a white evangelical all of those years. And Dan's song is true, and it breaks my heart every time I hear it. Thank you, Dan, and thank you for paying the price for writing that song. And thanks, Doug, for this opportunity to tell Pennsylvanians why I, as a white pro-life evangelical, are voting for Joe Biden and telling everybody I can to do the same. Now, I don't agree with Biden on everything, but in many, many, many places, I think Biden is closer to what I call biblical principles than the alternative. Take health care. Universal health insurance is a pro-life issue because if people don't have it, they get sicker and they die younger. And as we know, Obama's Affordable Care Act extended coverage to 20 million Americans. Trump has tried to get rid of that, has offered no alternative. Biden promises to cover every American. Or talk about tax policy. Trump promoted and signed a tax bill that gave almost 80% or more of its benefits to the richest 20%. Now, my friends, the richest 1% in this country have more wealth than the bottom 80%, and Trump's tax cut made that worse. Biden wants to increase taxes somewhat on the richest so they pay their fair share, and so we have money to afford the good programs that we need for the rest of us. Or take empowering poor people. Poverty kills millions of people every year here and abroad. Poverty is a pro-life issue. But repeatedly, Trump has tried to slash both foreign and national programs that help poor people. He's tried to cut food stamps, Pell Grants, Medicaid, affordable housing. Biden plans to increase those good programs. And unlike Trump, he's going to increase the minimum wage so that anybody who works full-time can get out of poverty. Or take creation care. The overwhelming scientific consensus, as you know, is that we must quickly reduce our emissions of greenhouse gases. But Trump denies the science and has done a whole bunch of terrible things to make things worse. Biden accepts the science as he's going to move us to a better place. Or racial justice. The massive response to the murder of George Floyd has, I think, opened up an amazing opportunity to move toward racial justice, greater racial justice in this country. But instead of seizing this opportunity to move in that direction, Trump has continued to stoke racism and to divide the nation for political and short-term advantage. Biden wants to move us closer to what Dr. King called that beloved community. Or take COVID-19. As the pandemic expanded rapidly in the first couple months, Trump told us it was no problem. And then he denied the scientific evidence, refused to wear a mask. Biden has demanded that we follow the science, and he will lead us to a better place. Or take immigration. Trump has labeled Mexicans seeking to come to the U.S. as criminals and rapists. He has separated children from their parents, put children in cages. He's tried to end the protection of dreamers. Biden reminds us that, quote, immigrants are us. We're all children of immigrants, and he will lead us to a better immigration policy. And finally, international leadership. We live in a world of growing dictatorship and totalitarianism. And I have to say, China's a problem. But you know what? The way you combat totalitarianism, including China's totalitarianism, is to bring together all the free democracies of this world. Instead, Trump has attacked democracies, has attacked the European Union and NATO and democratic friends around the world. Global respect for the U.S. has dropped dramatically under Donald Trump. Biden has vast global experience. He will unite rather than divide the democracies. He will help recover respect for this nation, which has so much good in it, as well as so much that's tragic and evil. Well, if that wasn't enough, just think of Trump's character one more moment. Repeatedly uttering sexist, misogynist statements about women that reduce them to little more than sex objects. He lies constantly. He bullies, disrespects anybody who disagrees with him. He repeatedly ignores wise advisors. He regularly chooses to divide rather than unite the country. Joe Biden has a long record of prioritizing family, of listening carefully to experts. He seeks to unite, not divide this nation. You know, the president of the country, my friends, whether we like it or not, is in some ways a role model for our children and our grandchildren. I ask myself, I have 7 grandchildren. Do I want those grandchildren to model themselves on the character and the actions of Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Seems to me the choice is very clear, both because of their policies and because of their character. Joe Biden would be a vastly better president than Donald Trump. I'm going to urge all my friends to vote for Biden, and let's elect Biden, Harris, and November the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah. You can clap again. That's great. Yeah. As he's listing off all those things, sometimes it just makes you want to sometimes just yell, right? Just, why? Just, you know? So this is my little yell song. A friend of mine wrote it. 31 years, got a few friends I can trust. I've got a couple more, baby, but we don't talk that much. I've got a woman, thank God, she's the best I've ever seen. Well, she keeps me rolling like an 18-wheel machine.
I'm on a roll. Hey, America, see, I'm looking for a sign. Hey, America, just a little sign of a life. See, I'm an Indiana boy with a heart that won't sit still. Yeah, my cup is running over, but I still ain't got my fill. So won't you pray for me, Mary, that I keep my spirit right? Can you help me, Jesus, when I wanna give up this fight? 'Cause I'm on the road. Hey, America, see, I'm looking for a sign. Hey, America, just a little sign of life. Hey, America, see, we've been living by faith and not by sight. We've been driving through these mountains in the middle of the night. There's this rain coming down, but I think I see your light. Hey, America, hey, America, hey, America.
Hi, my name is Mara Smith, and I swear we didn't plan this, but you've heard earlier about Ron and Vanessa talking about their Latina brown daughters. I am a Latina brown daughter of white people. One of my many claims to fame. So I grew up about 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia, other side Haddon Township, New Jersey. Community very similar to this. Lots of wealthy white people. I always say, I grew up Irish Catholic. My parents were Irish Catholic. I grew up going to church. There was no such thing as jeans in church, and that was kind of how my faith was. It was the rituals. It was going to church. It was saying, Lord, hear our prayer during the general intercessions, and then leaving. Because that's God's job, right? Lord, hear my prayer. God's going to take care of that for me. So I was born in 1991, and I lived about 10 years in an all-white community where I was a Catholic school of 200 people, grades pre through 8th grade. My grandfather worked in the office, and so people knew who I was. Didn't stop people from making comments, but that's a joke. Didn't stop people from making what they call off-color, they're racist. They're racist jokes. Right. It was a Catholic school, but we're all Catholic. We love you. We accept you like one of our own. So then, this day happened in 2001. And after that, people like me got treated a lot differently. In my school, in my town, in my community, where my family had been for over 100 years, because I look different. But it's not you, it's just the people who look like you. But these are the people in my church, and this is what people in my church are saying. So how's that align with my faith? Feels a little conflicting. went to urban challenges, went to urban plunges, similar stories. You're one of us because you're with all of us, and we're helping the other people. You're not helping the people who look like me. These are our brothers and sisters. We are all brothers and sisters in this. But people didn't seem to understand that. And then I went to a Jesuit college. They kind of got it. And that was where I really saw the shift of my faith. It wasn't just going to church on Sunday. It wasn't saying my prayers. It wasn't even just doing the examen at night. It was being a woman for others. That didn't mean others who looked like me. That didn't mean others who it was easy to love. That meant all of the others. That meant the ones that it was hardest to love. That meant the people who were making those comments to me growing up. And that's where I realized that I needed to put my faith into action. And so for me, my faith wasn't something that could stay within the four walls of my dorm room. It was something that needed to be lived. It was something that needed to be acted upon in politics. In 2016, I was a law student. Day after the election, I sat with my very best friend from college, a Muslim American. She and I sat, and I wondered, in fear, am I going to lose my job because of what I look like? I even said to my friend, the thing that kills me about Christian voters voting for a man that looks like them is that, historically speaking, Jesus looks more like us. And the Jesus who looks more like us loves them just as much as he loves us. He loves our Asian brothers and sisters. He loves our black brothers and sisters. He loves all of us equally. So it was then that I decided I couldn't sit still. I needed to get involved. And that's what I'm asking you all to do, is have those conversations. I know these types of communities. I know the type of people that you get to interact with on a daily basis. It's getting involved in any way you can. It's talking about the issues, and it's really listening to the experiences of people who are not like you, because that is one thing that we are really missing in this administration, is you aren't going to get everybody's experience, but we need leaders that are willing to listen. Like, neither of the candidates look like me, but I want the candidate who's willing to step back and listen and talk to people and have cabinets of people that he disagrees with and keeps and listens because he puts them in his cabinet because they know more than him. That's the kind of president I want. The kind of leader that I want is someone who knows that they don't know everything and asks other people to talk to them, to inform them. My experience isn't your experience. My experience is the experience of anybody else in this community or in my own community or who looks like me. But I think it is so essential that we choose a leader who is willing to hear those stories, to listen to those narratives, and to support individuals who can be in positions to tell their stories. That's why I'm here, and it's not a party issue. It is getting a certain type of leader out of office so that we can have a leader who truly listens, who truly cares, and who truly wants to do better. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your perspective and your point of view and sharing your story. I'm just going to take all these. I'm the last person to use this mic, so I'm just going to take them off. So we're getting ready to wrap up, y'all, and I have another piece I want to share with you. I told you before that I'm from Mississippi. I'm a daughter of Mississippi, and this is a very complex place. William Faulkner once said, to understand the world, you have to understand a place like Mississippi. So I was raised Muslim. Both of my parents converted to Islam before I was born. I still practice Islam in the form of Sufism, which is the mystic form of Islam. And its main focus is love, love of all creation. animate and inanimate objects. And that's just where my heart is. Islam to me is a religion of compassion and peace and humanity. And it has informed my work as an activist, and it has lined my path with gold, the teachings of Islam has. So I told you all about that flag coming down, and I told you that story because I want to let you all know that I'm here to bear witness and to tell you that change is happening. And sometimes it's hard to see it when you're so close to the struggle, or when it feels like we take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. I'm here to let you know from the hills of Mississippi, from the waters of Mississippi, that change is happening in my home state. And if it can happen in Mississippi, guess what? It can happen all over America, because Mississippi is a microcosm of our nation. Police exoneration and mass incarceration. Black and brown bodies, a commodity. Mothers separated from babies, border policy. It's like that White House is painted in the Klan's ideology, and our leadership is exploiting white poverty. Keeping us separate and divided, gay versus straight, white versus black, based off of fear and far from the facts. See, I hail from a state called the mighty Mississippi. It's the land of unsolved murder mysteries. I'm triggered by the trauma in my own family history. Because my dad, he was only 5 when a Klan drive-by bust bullets into his house with 6 children inside. On the back of the truck, a Confederate flag flying high. And these are the truths that some choose to deny. See, Mississippi, like America, eats your child and mine. The white supremacist lie is a prison of their own design. Some have forfeited their own humanity in order to deny mine. Because white supremacy is a lie. Some have accepted it. A Confederate curse they inherited. Bigotry is blinding, and their fear of the other has blocked their own blessings from their sisters and brothers. Outrage, fatigue, I'm screaming, I can't breathe. From the top, it trickles down from our judges to police. Because the illusion of freedom is far more dangerous than any jail cell or cramped cages. It really is. Because Mississippi is a microcosm of my nation, where cowards replace white sheets with fake avatars, repeating their parents' folklore, Tooth Fairy Santa Claus. The history's whitewashed. Google black codes and bylaws. In the comment section, sound off, sound off. Lord, they sound off, don't they? They call me a nigger, a bitch, or a dyke. You can call me whatever you like. I've been through worse in this fight. And the hatred in their words just proves that I'm right. Because Mississippi is a microcosm of a country that always needed me but never wanted me. My melanin and skin is a sin sentenced to build your economy? Pack the prisons, fill the quota, make us felons, never voters. Travel bans and deportation, killer cops, no resignations. Just federal indictments and mock trials, you see. My heart bleeds as the billboard reads, make America white again, as my favorite rapper concedes. Kanye. Making me question everything that I believe. But still, I love America, I do. Because I have hope. Some choose to jump ship, and some steer the boat. See, I know that love and humanity lives in the smile of every child, in the heart of every kid. So be brave enough to break the curse. We need you at the polls, out in droves, fighting against the bigots you oppose. Study law, run for office, make a call, write your Congress. Use your voice or choose a march. Ruth is gone, grab the torch. You can read a book, write a rap. Just speak with truth and deal with facts, please. Freedom and justice are under attack. Alt-right affiliation of Trump's administration, Confederate infiltration, neo-Nazi showing faces. Just fueling the fear and the hatred while expanding their corporations. Do you see now how Mississippi is a microcosm of our nation? I'm Genesis B, y'all. Thank you.
And hey, that's the our last bit for the night is our call response part. If you have one of these little bookmarks in your hand, we're going to use it. So if you've been holding that thing this whole time, it's time to pull it out. Or if you can still read in the dark, if you can still read what's on these banners, you'll see the same thing. It's what we call our Love and Politics Pledge. Now, this is not a pledge that we ask candidates to take. In fact, very often at these events, we have candidates with us. We don't have any today, but when a candidate is here, we say to them, you're going to take a pledge when you put your hand on whatever book you think is valuable to you and raise your other hand and make your vow to your commitment. This is a pledge that we ask for voters to take. There's 4 of them on the one side. You'll see it says that I will call, this is your part, I will call on all elected leaders to comport themselves in ways consistent with love in their public and professional lives. We don't think it's too much to ask that if someone's going to ask for your vote, that they make a commitment to act in love when they execute the power of the office that you put them into. Secondly, that you will support elected leaders who do so. Maybe you won't vote for them, but you'll give them your backup. You'll say, we recognize it when you do it. Thank you for acting in a way of love. Thirdly, you will stand up to and call for a change from any elected official who doesn't comport themselves in a way consistent with love, regardless of what party they're from. You'll ask them to change and demand that they do. And fourthly, you will require that all elected leaders speak out to other elected officials that they must comport themselves in a way consistent with love. No more of this, well, I wouldn't tweet it that way. Speak up and use your voice in your own industry like all of us do to self-police in your own industry. Those are the 4 commitments. And then on the back, we have a definition of love that we like around Vote Common Good. Maybe you have your own. This one comes out of the book of 1 Corinthians, and this is the call response part of the night. So here's where you get to stand up, and you're going to shout, and I'm going to shout, and we're going to shout it all out, friends. Here's how it goes. You're going to say love 13 times in a row, and if you want to read along with me the rest of it, you can, but you're going to shout this out. So here we go. It goes a little something like this. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. Love is not proud. Love does not dishonor others. Love is not self-seeking. Love is not easily angered. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil. Love rejoices with the truth. Love always protects. Love always trusts. Love always hopes. Love always perseveres. Don't you think we need a little more love in our politics? Hey, thanks for being with us. Mia and Mario and Dan on the new little beatbox over here are going to serenade you on your way out here. Thanks for being here. We'd love for you to greet one another. We'll see you over there at the participation tent.
Yes.